Hi folks, what a whirlwind couple of days it has been over here in New Zealand, and everything that's unfolded for those who scratch the surface, who seek even just an ounce of truth, understand and feel that something's not right with what's going on around us, and in that the world is in an absolute state of turmoil, and that the control that governments and so forth now have, we're going to have to pry back from them, and they seem to want to just exercise that more and more, and become more and more dictate to you and I about what we can and can't do. Our freedoms are basically all but hanging by a thread. And what's been very interesting is how God leads, I believe. I went to listen to a guy who he was brought to my attention by another friend, and he had started a party. It wasn't a registered party at that stage in New Zealand, but he had already, in the 11 days, I believe, he'd been talking and speaking to largely through social media. He's a guy that wasn't a politician, not interested in that, and probably had a few Jonah moments himself, and yet was pushed, compelled to go, something needs to be done here, and if I don't, who will? And as all of you people know, all it takes for evil to flourish in this world is for good men to sit by and do nothing. And so those words have been playing on my heart too, and I thought, I've got to go and support this man. And I've never really been, even though a lot of you see I speak a lot about geopolitical situations and not so much hyper-local type political issues, but more the sort of the larger global scale issues that we see. And that's just because that's how I'm wired. I'm a kind of a forest from the trees guy, always looking at the bigger picture. It's typically how I view the world. So with that, I saw this guy locally though, and I thought, I've chosen New Zealand as a place for me and my family, and here I am, New Zealand, and Jacinda just seems to be on an absolute rush to trample on any freedom she can, but this is part of a greater plan, and it's pretty clear to those. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So there is a plan there to strip away freedoms and to sort of almost squash the middle class. And because when you take away wealth and prosperity from people and you just hand it on to a few, A, they want to control you, but B, you cripple those people. They become reliant entirely on the government and the state. And of course you've got the start of socialism, which eventually leads to communism. And there is yet to be a proven case of successful communism. It isn't successful. In fact, it's worse than that. It leads to starvation, death. I can't possibly imagine it because I haven't lived in it, but I know some of you either have or your parents have. And but I consider myself pretty good at least trying to put my brain into the space, or my mind into the space of others that may have lived through some of these historic events that I've read about. And certainly when reading about them, you go, I don't want that for my children. I don't want that for my community. I don't want a world like that. And it is a slippery slope right now, and we seem to be skating down it at a rapid pace. So I go, I've got to throw my financial support and whatever other support I can give. I have been blessed, and so therefore I have a lot to give. I've got to throw it behind this guy who I see his values are aligned with mine. He sees the greater picture. He sees the greater agenda, and it's being played out in a way that seems oh so sweet, and oh they love us, and oh they just want to look after us, and blah blah blah. No, it's not, guys. All right, this is a wolf in sheep's clothing, and you must turn off your TVs and start to read from varied sources. Start to not just dismiss what the mainstream media has told you is this or that and giving you their little taglines. they label these things because they don't want you to see truth. You need to start to peel back those layers and say, no, you're not going to tell me what I should or should not read. I'm not going to be fearful of information. It is just simply that, information. So then rely on your discernment. Your discernment will guide you, right? And as you rely on it more and more, you will strengthen it. You will develop a better discernment for what is truth and what is fiction. Because whilst there is a lot of factual, let's say, layers of lies, and that sounds odd, it sounds like a misnomer or an oxymoron, because how can you have something that's factual and then be a lie? But the truth is that everyone has their version of facts as brought to you by the experts. Listen, the only way I can say to you is to see through that, is to start to read and identify not individual little facts, but identify themes. Start to look for themes, and these themes will reveal, will open themselves up to you. Seek and ye shall find. So, doubling back, here I am. What can I do? How can I help? I go to see this guy. The party's 11 days old. Phone's going off the hook. Party's 11 days old. I go to see him. Next thing you know, in the space, he's got hundreds of people there. I had to bolt early. They'd be swamped, right? We get back. We create a bit of a think tank. A guy from Texas who I've employed. He's passionate as well. Passionate about this stuff. Says we need a think tank. We need to start working out how we can further support him. One thing leads to another. Next thing you know, Billy's sitting in my house from the NZVP. Last night for a meeting of the minds, and what a great meeting it was. And my goodness, this guy, and I believe it's a very much a God thing, is he has made enormous momentum here. He now has more members, and this is for a party that actually wasn't even established. People have jumped on and just literally memberships are just going wild. Has more members than either of the parties, the established left and right, National and Labour Party here in New Zealand. He already has more members than both of them, signed up. So and he can't even take any money off anyone because obviously he's not an established party. But that is happening now. There is a deal being signed, and so he will have a party to be able to take donations, etc. So here he is then. From all of these things, next thing, this guy who has just been a rock star, which God has been using, is now pushing for real honesty and transparency in government, for real people to be on his side, and here he is. He ends up at my place just out of the blue last night, and by virtue of the people that we're connected to, and there was a meeting, and he's there. And the exclamation mark is, I've been asked to run with him. Now, I hate, for someone that follows politics a lot, I hate it. I hate it with a passion. Why? Because I see it as a cesspit. I see it as a place where, someone like me, a conservative, a Christian, but a capitalist, and yes, people, a real capitalist, and I mean real free markets. I don't mean the phony variety that we currently enjoy. Now, if you don't know what phony capitalism looks like, then you're living in it. Phony capitalism is where you end up with corporatocracies. You've got very, very large corporations able to control and influence and even write the very legislation that the government then votes in or institutes for you and I. So, of course, things are swayed towards, the big end of town, and that is phony capitalism. Free markets are not there to thrive. They make it incredibly difficult for the little guy to get big. And he's just big enough, maybe, just big enough to be the one footing the tax bill for them so that they get a free ride. People, that is phony capitalism in a nutshell, and that's what we enjoy today. It's time that stops. It's time that true capitalism, be it free markets, be the ability to expand, trade, enjoy, sell, buy from who you like to who you like, etc. This is and markets without restrictions, without red tape. Sure, there needs to be protections in some sense, but there needs to be a concerted effort to keep that red tape as little as humanly possible. And so here I am. Like I say, I've been asked to run for the city of Tauranga here in the Bay of Plenty, in this beautiful country, which me and my family now enjoy. I think I hate the idea of it, but at the same token, I don't feel like I have a choice. I feel like God has said to me, my son, it's not really up for debate. You have a mandate now, and you, too much has been given to you, so therefore much must be expected. It's a hell of a burden. I have a young family. I have three kids and another little one on the way. So it's it's a difficult thing for me to wrap my head around right now. But equally, I know that good people must stand up and good people must fight. And if you're listening to this message and you hear or you hear or feel a stirring within you to the same tune, and that is, you're a good man, you must do something, then I implore you now to listen to that. You must do something. This is not a fight that I can win alone, that this party can win alone. It's a global fight right now. It's a global fight for autonomy and sovereignty over ourselves, over the people around us, to have communities that live and thrive on love and not fear, that have the ability to go out and enjoy this beautiful world that God has given us, but not to exploit, but to enjoy each other, to try and benefit future generations rather than rob from them. These are important times. I pray that you will pray for me as I continue to try and help out where I can with Billy and his party at New Zealand Public Party. These are interesting times, and so watch this space. It's going to be a lot more activity. But like I say, whatever prayer you can give me right now, it's needed, and for my wife and my family, because there is a war, and it's very much an information war, almost a silent war. No bullets are being shot, no one's being killed. But let's face, well, people are, to be fair, but often under the most extraordinary and when I say extraordinary, well, often the most coincidental, which I won't go into that, but there is a lot of risk, but the risk will be greater ahead of us unless we start to stand up and fight for our liberties and fight for our freedoms, so that runaway governments don't do that. That exactly what I mean. They don't run away and morph into something which becomes dictatorships or ruled by tyranny. So listen, thank you all for listening. Start of an incredible journey as at today, when I accepted that role. I'll give you more and more updates as things go on. Hey, God bless to all of you, and may you continue to live under love and not fear. Brian Gillette.